This is Musicably Podcast. Hello and welcome to Musicably. I'm Palo Beka, and today I want to ask you something a little strange. When was the last time you made a really loud noise? Not talking, not laughing politely at someone else's joke. A full, unguarded, body-wide noise. If you have to think hard about that, you are not alone. Most adults I have met, and over 40 years in music I have met many, have spent decades quietly editing themselves, swallowing the sounds that wanted to come out, keeping the volume down, being appropriate. I understand why. The world rewards people who are composed. But here is what I have learned, and what the science is now confirming. The sounds we suppress the most are often the ones our bodies need the most. The yell, the groan, the gasp, the outburst we press back down before anyone hears it. These are not failures of composure. They are the voice doing exactly what it was built to do. The shout is not a modern invention. It is not a symptom of a bad day or a weakness of character. It is one of the oldest sounds the human body makes. Long before any of us could form a word, we could yell. Babies come into the world doing it. Every culture on earth has it. Neuroscientists now know that the shout travels a completely different path through the brain than speech does. It bypasses the parts of you that plan and edit and compose yourself. It comes from somewhere older, faster, and in many ways more honest. When something frightens you, surprises you, or pushes you past your limit, the yell has already left your body before your thinking brain has caught up. That is not a malfunction. That is the nervous system doing its job with stunning efficiency. But here is the part that most people do not know. The same system that fires a holler involuntarily can also be used intentionally, deliberately, skillfully. And when you do that, something completely different happens. I have spent a lot of time exploring the space between high-level musical thinking and the raw physical act of making sound. What I have discovered is this. We have largely forgotten how to use our most primary instrument, the voice, as a tool for everyday survival. We have traded the battle cry for the polite nod, and our nervous systems are paying the price. Here is why. The brain has two separate pathways for vocalization. The first is the voluntary pathway. This is the motor cortex at work. It lets us speak, sing, choose our words carefully. The second is the involuntary pathway. This is older. It is rooted in the amygdala and the brainstem. When you experience a sudden surge of anger or a deep wave of sadness, this ancient circuit wants to trigger what researchers call a vocal affect burst. A scream, a sob, a loud groan. It is an evolutionary alarm designed to discharge stress and alert the people around you. But in modern life, we almost always use the voluntary pathway to suppress these bursts. We manage the feeling, we process it verbally, we keep it appropriate. The result is a physiological mismatch. The brain has triggered a high-energy stress response, but the body never got the acoustic release it needed to complete the cycle. We are left carrying the energy of a yell that was never allowed to happen. Now, think about martial arts for a moment. In karate, judo, taekwondo, traditions spanning centuries and continents. There is a vocal technique called the kiai. It is a sharp, focused release of sound at the moment of maximum effort. Not a scream of fear, not a cry of pain, a gathered, chosen, directed call. Athletes do the same thing. Tennis players grunt. Weightlifters roar under a heavy bar. Rowers call out a rhythm that coordinates the pull. These are not accidents or bad habits. Researchers have measured the effect. Vocalizing at the moment of maximum effort increases physical force output by over 10%. The body recruits more of itself when the voice is involved. The gathered shout is not a loss of control, it is a form of it. Now here is something important. Pure venting, screaming at the ceiling because the day went badly, does not have strong evidence behind it as a useful practice. Done without intention or structure, it tends to amplify the emotional state rather than release it. What works is different. It is the chosen holler, the one that comes from a grounded body and goes somewhere deliberate. That distinction between reacting and choosing is where musicking begins. Here is something that vocal researchers have discovered and that singers have quietly known for a long time. The physical states that produce our most unguarded sounds, the gathering of anger, the edge of tears, are not obstacles to singing. They are the raw material of it. When the body is on the verge of crying, something very specific happens in the larynx and the breath. A slight constriction, a forward quality in the resonance, a held back pressure that charges the sound with something almost unbearable. It turns out this physical configuration, the gesture of suppressing a cry, produces some of the most resonant, emotionally direct singing the human voice can make. The same is true of anger. The braced diaphragm, the pressurized breath, the full body engagement that anger mobilizes, these are precisely the conditions that generate a powerful, carrying, honest vocal sound. The difference between a shout of anger and a belted musical phrase is not the emotion behind them. It is the pitch, the breath, and the form. In other words, the voice that cries and the voice that sings are the same voice. The sob and the song are made of the same material. You do not have to choose between feeling something and expressing it musically. The instrument is designed to do both at once. There is a growing field called vocal empowerment coaching that works in this territory, blending vocal technique with somatic awareness to help people find a more authentic and powerful voice. It is doing interesting work. What I am pointing at here is something related, but different. Not coaching the voice toward better performance, returning the voice to the body it always belonged to. I grew up in socialist Czechoslovakia, in a household where sound was as ordinary as bread. My father sang and whistled constantly. He was not a musician by any formal definition. He had no training, no instrument, but he had a repertoire of thousands of songs from his younger years. He simply made sound the way the body wants to make sound, freely, regularly, without thinking about whether it was good. He hummed at the stove. He sang under his breath in the garden. 5 notes repeated, sometimes going nowhere in particular, sometimes finding his way back to music he loved from his youth. He was musicking. He had never heard that word. I think about him often when I work with adults who tell me they cannot sing. or that they are not musical. What they usually mean is this. Somewhere along the way, someone told them their voice was too much, too loud, too off-key, too embarrassing, and they believed it. They pulled the sound back in, and they have been carrying that silence ever since. The intentional holler is one way back, not because yelling is the destination, but because the body remembers, in the act of making a full and unguarded sound, that the voice belongs to it, that there is a person in there who can be loud and survive it. That is not a small thing. That is the beginning of reclaiming something that should never have been taken. Here is what I find most remarkable about all of this. The intentional call, done well, does not end with the call. What happens after, if you follow it, is that the body, having discharged, wants to continue. The exhale that carried the shout wants to keep moving, and if you let it, without forcing, without directing too hard, what often emerges is a tone, a sustained sound, an open vowel on a pitch the body found on its own. That is not a coincidence. There is a profound connection between yelling and singing. Both involve sustained breath, vocal fold vibration, resonance. But while a yell is a raw, immediate release of energy, singing is shaped expression. By adding pitch and rhythm and contour to the vocal release, we move the energy from a state of alarm to a state of integration. We move from being a victim of the noise to being the conductor of the release. The holler and the sung note are made of the same material, same breath, same larynx, same body. What differs is the shape. The shout is sudden and percussive. The tone is sustained and resonant. But the distance between them is much shorter than you think, and traveling it, even once, even awkwardly, teaches you something no music lesson ever could. It teaches you that your voice has a full range, that it is not just the polished, socially acceptable sliver you have been presenting to the world for years, that the sound of you, the real, unedited, embodied you, is larger than that. I have started calling this process singing out. Not singing well, not singing beautifully, not singing for anyone. Just letting the sound move from inside the body to outside it, following wherever the breath leads, without the censor deciding in advance what is and is not allowed. It is a deceptively simple thing, and for many people, it turns out to be one of the most significant things they have ever done with their voice. I am not going to give you a full exercise today, but I will say this. The next time you are completely alone, in your car, in your house, in the shower, try this. Plant your feet, put your hands on your belly, take a breath that goes all the way down, and on the exhale, let the sound be exactly as big as it wants to be. Not shaped, not aimed at anyone, not evaluated. Then let whatever comes next come. And notice what happens in the silence that follows. That silence, after a full and honest sound, is one of the most interesting things I know. Thank you for listening. I'm Palo Beka and this is Musicably. If this episode stayed with you, share it with someone who has been quiet for too long. You can find more at musicably.com And if you are curious about what it would mean to bring music back into your daily life, there is a link in the show notes to book a free musical story call with me. Music is a birthright, not a talent. See you next week.